everyone, to another epic night. Tonight is going to be a very interesting night for all of us, for me, myself, and for you too. Um, we try to deal on this channel, as you always know. I try to deal with truth. I'm against slander, but truth need to be exposed sometimes. That our youth and those that's out there understand the right road that they should be walking on, and maybe be aware of the road that they on currently. So without further ado, I will let the guest tonight introduce himself.
How's it going? Thanks for having me. I'm
Hey,
Jonathan A.
yeah, how you doing, Jonathan?
Good, thank you.
That's great, So like to give a shout out to my brother in Christ, Polo, who set this interview up. Um, I have watched everything you've done so far on social media, and I found you very interesting. And at first, I was suspect, but when I was watching your interview, I must say that so many things that you spoke on, ring true for me. So I don't know if you're aware of, I come from a Christian background, I represent Christ all day. Well, that's my thing. Everybody knows me for that. I went to a private school, all my life. And the private school I went to was actually a Christian school. So I was in my school, the Bible was the, if you fail Bible class, you fail the whole grade, so it was more important than math. So when I was listening to you, I see that you had a similar background,
Correct.
So I want to first, talk about that. Let's, if you don't mind, if can you, let us know about your Christian background.
So my family started a Christian church. Well, they were part of the founders that started a Christian church in Louisville, Kentucky, called Southeast Christian Church, which is now one of the eighth largest church in the United States, right? And the mega church. I think there's like 35,000 members
Right.
that go. But when it started out in the backyard. My uncle was a founding member, and then like throughout my childhood, it just grew, bigger building, borrowing the local stadium for Easter service, and then finally into a facility that would hold that many people. And it just kept growing. But for me, it was a bit strange growing up because, when I would get out of church and we'd always go out to eat, like my grandfather and the founding elder, my uncle and the pastor and the deacons, they would seems like they mostly talk about the offering plate, the membership, and how many new members came forward. And at least that's what stuck out to me. And that always rubbed me wrong, like growing up. But as I got older, I realized, well, I mean, run a church of that size, they needed to have resources and they needed to have money. And they needed to have, people to protect that many people, to, you know, have the right parking, all the thing that it takes to run a building, something of that magnitude. So I started to understand, the business behind it a lot more and began to really appreciate what my family had done. But like you, I went to a private Christian school and I was playing basketball there. It was like my thing, like basketball in high school, being from Kentucky. That's what we did. So I went through the Christian school, but I had a lot of problems because I was like such into hip hop, Public Enemy, Eric B. and Rakim, X Clan, Trap Called Quest, all that kind of stuff. And I'd wear like EE medallions and African medallions that I'd see on Yo Raps. And of course, being in the South, my counselors and teachers didn't like that whatsoever. You know what I mean? So I got expelled from school for hip hop. You know, and one day I met Willie D from the Ghetto Boys, and I told him I was like, "Bro, you got me kicked out of school, man, because I was listening to your music and they you know, they saw I had written like all their lyrics on like a notebook, which is the Ghetto Boys, which were very explicit. My parents had thought that I had wrote those lyrics, so I literally got kicked out of school, you know, Christian school.
Hmm.
I was like, these aren't my lyrics; these are the Ghetto Boys. So, you know, I grew up a real hip hop head. You know,
Wow, that's really amazing because I remember when the Ghetto Boys first came out myself. You know, I was kind of a young guy too. I was in school too when all those groups came out, and it was like a real shockwave. You know,
yes,
because the prior music wasn't like that. You know, we had prior to that, like KRS-One, X Clan, as you name,
Mhm.
which was one of my favorites. Public Enemy. You know, the groups were more based, more message. You know, back
Of
then.
course,
You know, so when groups like the Ghetto Boys hit, you know, NWA, of course, you know, and there was so many, it was countless others, you know, around that time that hit.
right.
MC8 came out around that time, you know. It seemed like,
Yeah, Compton's Most Wanted.
yeah, Compton's Most Wanted. It seemed like
Yeah,
a floodgate had opened up at that time, and it seemed like the more conscious message based rap
hmm
got pushed out the door. And
right.
we came this introduction of they wanted to call it reality based music, but you know, one of the things that I think about when people say that, you know, well, it was a reality based music. I was a kid like yourself, and at the time prior to listening to that music, that wasn't my reality. You know,
Right, right.
you know what I'm saying?
That's crazy.
I was,
Yeah.
yeah, I was a good kid. When I started listening to that type of music, I found myself in the mirror, you know what I'm saying, thinking, you know, I'm holding gun, you know, making the gun signs and, you know, thinking I'm on the run from the cops and the cops is my enemy. And it, it turned it into my reality.
Drinking Cold 45,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, the 40 ounces, old English 40 ounces and all
yeah.
that stuff.
I was smoking Newports because I saw Tupac doing it,
Absolutely.
you
It,
know.
it was like it helped usher out my innocence. You know,
Right.
it helped usher out my innocence. You know, I didn't know anything about, you know, trying to take advantage of women, you know, or anything like that. Like that was just, you know, they always say, oh, you had songs like that before, but it was not oversaturated. You know, you know, you might have had, you know, a pimpin' ain't easy, like my wife always get on me, the queen, and say, oh, you had pimpin' ain't easy, and you know, a couple songs like this, and you know, Kara's one, she was young and good, and stuff like that. But I say I understand, but it wasn't overtaking my mind because again, it wasn't oversaturated. The positivity was there, and the positivity actually oversaturated. And
Yeah,
yeah, once that music came in, yeah, it changed everything.
for sure.
Yeah. So tell me some more. You was in the church, and as you grew up, how did you how did you break away? Was it from after you
Well,
getting? Yeah.
yeah, well, once I got kicked out of high school, you know, Christian school, it was like embarrassing for my family, obviously, because of the mega church and everything. So,
Hmm.
and my mom and my dad, um, were divorced. So I just started going to church with my mother, and it wasn't like, the big church where, there was basketball, where there was so much to do for the youth, because there's so many more resources and so many more kids. It was a very dead church, right? And just kind of, backslid at that point, until college. But I mean, not crazy like these kids are doing now, but I was, like we said, like drinking, Mad Dog 2020 and Cisco and
Yeah, I remember the Cisco. They used to say crack was in that.
yeah, that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
like, then I was always doing like little beats on like a drum machine and like a Tascam 4-track recorder. And I started to go to college, and when I would go to college, my parents were like, you got to quit listening to hip hop. You got to. I was like, I won't listen up in hip hop anymore. You don't listen to hip hop, and you go to school. You can come home. I needed a place to live at that point, right? So I was like going to college. But then when I started going to college, there was a studio downtown on Fifth Street that I just kind of, like found. I don't know how. It was definitely, meant to be. And I started like, working there, making beats there, making money there, booking for like the national acts that were coming in. I was like 18 and 19 years old. And that's where I really learned, like my gift with my parents didn't know that that's what that I was downtown, because my parents are from the suburbs. But
Hmm.
if they knew I was downtown that lake catching the bus, they'd have been really upset. But I was making money and I was doing, producing music. And then I signed a record deal at like 19 with the studio, and we just started working, and that's how my career started. So it started in hip hop, but the first group that I got a record deal on was an alternative rock group. So they sold like 3 million copies, and I was like touring all over the United States. It was wonderful.
Wow.
And during the success of that, started to get back into hip hop. Started working with some of my heroes that I had grown up on. So my first thing was a very like southern rock group that broke me through the doors, and that's how I became a publicist.
What was some of the first early hip hop groups you was working with?
So for like hip hop, like after that project, because it's Louisville, I was working with the Nappy Roots, who were Grammy nominated. And then, I ended up working with like, Chuck D, a Public Enemy, which was amazing.
Wow, very amazing.
I did a whole project with Eric B and Rakim, Sadat X and Grand Puba from Brand Nubian. Just like everybody, like I said, DMC from Run DMC, he actually helped find my birth mother because I was adopted. So like I really got to work with like all my heroes. It was amazing, right? To be able to do that from Louisville, Kentucky.
How old was you at that time?
So I got started in my career. I was 19 when I started. And then when I had my first success was 2021. And that's when we booked like we were booking like Michael Jackson's group called Quo that never really made it. And then, that turned into other things, and the rock group turned into like working for Whitney Houston's father's company, and that which was John Houston Entertainment. And obviously his big client was his daughter, Whitney Houston. So that turned into a lot of stuff, and I was just able to keep maneuvering and keep working.
That's amazing. When I most of the people you just named was an amazing story for myself. When I was 15 years old, I had. Have you ever heard of the Nation of Gods and Earths?
No.
They you might consider them the 5% nation.
Oh, I've heard of that, yeah.
Yes. So when I was 15 years old, I had became a member of that I became a member, and I was rebelling. I was during the time of rebelling, not uh, listening and following the right path that was set before me by my parents.
Mm,
And when I joined them, I was very big already. At 15 years old, I was already probably about 6'5", 6'6". I was
mhm,
already like 280 pounds and
mm,
solid. And they trained me well. They picked me up as a kid, the grown men, Shout outs to Universal, rest in peace, Dumas. Big shout out to Adu Allah, you know. But they took me under their wing and raised me up, and they taught me and they trained me how to be quiet, stay silent, listen, be focused. And I was a part of the FOA. So the FOA is the fruit of Allah, and it's like the
mm.
army that protects the nation of God's and earth. It would be the security part of the group. So being in the security part of the group, most of those acts you just named were God body. Rakim,
Mhm.
Daddy Kane, Brand Nubian, Wu Tang later. So they have every year parliaments where they come and perform and they do shows, and then when they would do shows in New York and different other places, it's the FOA that will protect them. And at that time, my enlightener at that time was the lieutenant. So I'm right up under him. So I was, and like I'm the biggest, strongest young guy. So I was right there as a child, 15 years old. No one knew who I was. These guys to this day bug out when they see me because they didn't understand that I was that young back then.
Right, right.
Yeah, but yeah, I was blessed with the opportunity of watching these guys back, protecting them on stage, doing, different things with them. So that was my introduction into the security business. Um,
Mm.
so as you now working with them, was it all what you thought it to be? It was everything, your dreams of, now that you were around and now in hip hop, was it what you expected?
No, not at all. And it was almost like when I met Chuck D, it was almost disappointing because I was like such a fan growing up. And, when I expected him, I was like nervous. Like right before I met him, I was like, he's going to be like militant. And he was the kindest, sweetest man in the world, the smartest guy I've ever talked to. And it humanized him almost. And I love Chuck D, right? He follows me on Twitter and, we still talk, but he was so kind and he was so smart and he taught me so much that I didn't hear, the music the same as like the rage and the rebellion that you would think of like from Fear of a Black Planet, and It Takes a Nations of Millions. It was like I heard, I met the other side of him, which was such a kind, great man with so much wisdom. Like I said, it humanized him to the point where I just wasn't so starstruck, right? And I was like so starstruck, like when I meet Chuck D, it was a big deal, right? So that was an interesting experience, and I love him, for that, right? But we when I met Eric B. and Rakim, that was just in 2019, and I was doing a jazz record because I had produced two number one jazz albums, and this would be the third one. And so I decided to do Follow the Leader, Eric B. and Rakim's album. I decided to do that entire album as jazz with no vocals. So where Rakim would be rapping, I would have the saxophone player mimicking, his raps, his cadences of that. And when we did the album and it came out, and it went to number one. Like, I mean, it came out, this is like how crazy God is and like all the stuff he's done for me. It came out on a Friday, and Sunday we were with them for a show backstage. I've never met these guys in my life. I've always been a fan, put out the album, but the energy was so strong on that project that on Sunday I was with them. And then we ended up partnering up, remixing some of the album, adjusted some of the mixes on the album. And the record went to number one on Billboard Jazz, Rakim's first number one album. And he started to promote it because he had released a book. So he was promoting it, and we stayed on the top of the Billboard charts for 11 weeks. And I got to spend time with Rakim and Eric B, and they were amazing. Rakim was still like an anomaly. Like he's still like an anomaly to me because he's very quiet. He's very soft spoken, like he's very, wise, but when I met Chuck D, he was just so friendly and talkative. Right. But it's been amazing to work with my heroes. It's just not quite as what I thought it would be. Right. Um, but it's definitely an honor. Sometimes, like I said, I wish I never met them so I would just hear the music the way that I did when I was a kid.
When you say it wasn't what you quite thought it would be, that was financially or something else?
Um, no, I wouldn't say financially because there wasn't like we weren't doing anything. Well, I guess Eric B and Rakim and I, we released the record, but it was never about the money, right? It was always about the art, and it was always about being authentic, and that's why it's worked with that kind of vibration, you know.
I know.
But the reason why I say disappointed is because, like, when you have your heroes, and then you meet them and they're just regular people. It's like when you meet them without their cape on and stuff, like meeting a superhero. It's just like, oh wow, they I guess they let their guard down a little bit, right? Whereas when I met Prince, I mean, he was full blown Prince, right? Like he was like, oh my gosh, you were like nervous, sweating. You know what I mean? Like when I met Whitney Houston and worked with her, she was like so cool. She would smoke with me. She wouldn't put on makeup. Like, I think that's why she liked me because she could just be herself around me,
Hmm.
and because she had this other publicist who was very corporate, Nancy Seltzer, but Whitney was, we really clicked.
Oh, y'all would smoke bud together?
We smoked like cigarettes.
Oh, cigarettes? Okay, all right.
Yeah, we would chain smoke. She smoked a lot.
What was this during the Bobby Brown era?
Yeah, this is in 2005 in Alpharetta, Georgia.
So
2001 through 2005, 6.
so you would be with Bobby Brown too. You would see Bobby?
He wouldn't be around as much. But I mean they were still together and stuff. It's just she was kind of independent. She was with herself a lot in her house in Alpharetta. I think they were going through some stuff during the time.
Back and forth. We know back then they
Hmm.
was constantly going through they back and forth. How
I
was
mean,
it?
when you reach the level of success that they did, everything is weird. And then when you start to fall off, like a lot of people always think it's cool that I work with Whitney Houston, but I worked with her during the times they would say, quote unquote, she had fallen off, right? She wasn't selling records anymore. People weren't booking us for big shows. They were the rumors about all the drug use,
Hmm.
and everybody, it was all the tabloids and gossip about her and Bobby.
Hmm.
So it wasn't the same as like she is now, which really isn't fair. Like she's now considered iconic, but then it was a real rough. I was working with her during the rough period.
Yeah, I remember that period. That was the period of what year was their television show?
That was all in the 2005, 2006 range.
That yeah, that's what I was going to say. That was around that
Hmm.
range, and um, yeah, that was. I think that was the lowest that we had seen Whitney be during.
Right.
Yeah.
And she did like the Barbara Walters interview and like the crack
That
is
was
whack
terrible.
thing,
That
and
that was just terrible. And Bobby came on and he was sweating up a storm.
yeah.
Like, where's all this sweat coming from, Bobby? You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember that whole interview. It was,
And they were playing them because they could have easily wiped them down. What they were
yeah,
doing.
yeah. Of course,
Click. They were doing clickbait back then too.
yeah, of course they had to be because I remember that sweat coming out of her.
Yeah, they can. You can wipe them down. Come on.
Said like, damn, Bob, you just hit the joint. It came on the camera. Like, what the hell? What's going on here? But I one of the things I was excited to see when she was making the comeback.
Yeah, that was great.
She got her weight back. That was just amazing. She she started looking, like herself almost again. And it was like a great thing. Start coming out with a couple movies and albums.
Yeah.
I think she came out maybe with 2 albums. And the next thing you know, it was, the unfortunate incident that happened that took her life. Do you know anything about that?
No, I just know, what everybody else knows. I just find it very weird that she died in a bathtub and her daughter died in a bathtub, both of drug overdoses. Like, what
Yeah,
are the
that that
chances of
that
that?
is like very weird, right?
I don't know anybody else. Do you who's died of a drug overdose in a bathtub? Now we have a
Hmm.
mother and daughter. It's like, what? That there's something weird about that. So I can't even speculate of what that would be. Right. So
Did you know her record label exec Clive Davis?
I did a little bit, but we dealt with, so John Houston, her father was very much in control of her career
Hmm.
because he was shielding her. We tried to shield her the best as much as he could from the industry. He was a great man. But we didn't have a lot of experiences with Clive Davis. She was Whitney Houston. We would turn in our records. She'd record them herself, get them recorded. They would give her the budget, and she was doing a lot of stuff from her home in Alpharetta in like a guest house that they set up as a recording studio. So she was doing a lot of that stuff there. I only met Clive Davis once or twice, but obviously I heard the stories and, the fact that she passed away a couple floors above him during his industry party and he kept the party going while she's dead is repulsive to me.
I found that I didn't even, but when I heard that story, it was so repulsive. I didn't even believe it. I said that can't be possible. Like, he's gonna keep the party going and people upstairs partying, and Whitney Houston, the legend, is in the same building and she just passed away.
Correct.
Yeah, when I had heard that, that sounded very weird, I must say. I always, I really thought it wasn't the truth, but come to find out, it seemed to be the truth.
It was, yeah. And it was so weird, like, because it seemed like Clive Davis genuinely loved her, the way he talked about her. Like he, kind of put her on. She kind of helped raise his status a lot because it was Whitney Houston. And to see him to like basically like treat her like trash was crazy. That's so disrespectful. You would think that he would care so much as at least I always believed that he did, but come to find out he didn't.
Was
Because who's going to keep the party going when
Yeah, exactly. When someone, your artist that then helped build up your whole entire, catalog. Who's got a stronger, more powerful, legendary catalog than Whitney Houston?
exactly?
So yeah, I don't even see that. That was definitely questionable to me. Now I know I've always heard rumors that him and her wasn't really on the good terms at the time of her death. Was there
Right.
any truth to that?
Mm,
Was she trying to get her?
I don't think there were bad terms. It was just
She was battling for something, or she wanted something from him, or something. I don't know.
she had her own internal battles going on,
Hmm.
and she was kind of done with the music business at that point. She
Hmm.
just wanted to, retire, be a mother, and just chill. Like if she wanted to sing, then she would sing. So I don't think there was any beef. I just think that he just moved on to other artists who were working and she wasn't. You know?
Copy. So, now that you're in the industry and you around, some of your most favorites that you have seen, um, like for me, one of the things that disappointed me when I got an opportunity to be around some of these people was that from day one, it their own personal financial situations sort of troubled me because
Right. No, I agree.
yeah, it wasn't what it was on the video. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like
Yeah.
like wait a second, like this ain't what it looks like in the video. And at that time, I was an aspiring rapper since like 6, 7 years old, and that turned me off immediately. I didn't. I said, why would I keep chasing hip hop if the very people that I'm looking up to, their financial situation is not straight themselves? And back then, it was even worse because if you was chasing, as you know, it was you had to carry the records for 2 or 3 years before you even got an opportunity, to be cut in on just a single. Someone put you as a feature on their song. It was like you had to be carrying records and running behind them for 2 or 3 years, and I didn't agree with that. So my life went a different direction, and I pursued a different avenue because
Yeah.
I didn't want I didn't want that. So now that you're in the industry, at what point was it that the Christian in you, the child in you that was raised, began to see that you might have stepped into a dark arena?
Obviously this year, within the last few months, because it was always there, right? Because it was always in my DNA. God was, and I would always convicted of certain things, or I would always feel a sense of regret. But the music that I was doing and the stuff that I was promoting was wicked, was violent, was uh degrading to women. And my reasoning for accepting that was because it's like I'm not even listening to it. This is like if I'm working at, like a Coca-Cola, know that it's sugar water and I know it's hurting everybody, but I'm just doing my job, right? I'm just promoting. I'm not even listening, to the content. And so as I kept getting like bigger and as a publicist, the thing that changed really was 2017 when I was coming home with my 14-year-old daughter, and we were pistol whooped, we were ambushed, pistol whooped, and duct taped, bound, duct taped, and we were held in a home invasion for like 2 hours. That's when everything started to change. And after that happened, I was real angry at God. I was very blasphemous. I would walk around my place cussing at God. And I was just so angry that something like that happened because my daughter and I's relationship had changed so much because she didn't look at me as someone that could keep her safe because that happened. And then, 3 people pled guilty to kidnapping and robbery charges. They went to prison, but that changed everything. And then the trauma was so intense for me. I started to. That's when I started to dabble with like drugs, psychedelics, different things like that, DMT, mushrooms, acid, Molly. I started to travel to New York a lot, and that's when I started to take like a different path. I was still having success, and 2023 was like rock bottom, where it's like, okay, I'm not doing like not going to the parties anymore. I'm not doing anything. It's just me and my girl. We're out in New York, close to her family. I just felt very like I was just tired, right? I was just tired of like, everything. And then this year I started to like work again, started to write a book, I started to get inspired again. I got I started to live around, my oldest daughter. She moved in with me. Just started to really like get in get a like a second outlook on life. And that's what I've been doing. I've been back working, but for a few years, I definitely went through some serious depression from that incident that happened.
And I heard you speak about that incident, which I'm sorry that I couldn't even
Yeah,
imagine, you having to suffer through an incident like that with your daughter. Our women, they do look for us to be their protector, and um, that's a very unfortunate situation. My heart goes out to you. I couldn't imagine. Um, so I'm if I was making it out right or not, from what I was understanding at that time that you was working with Drake,
correct.
and um, is being alluded to that he might have had something allegedly to do with it, and that he was upset with you for outing him.
Yeah, Jaguar Wright had mentioned that.
Hmm.
Shout out to Jaguar Wright.
Yeah,
She's a
big
close
shout out
friend.
to my sister. Yeah.
Yeah, she's a really good friend,
Hmm. Yeah,
and
she's been on the platform.
yeah, she put me on doing this, stuff and speaking out, and really gave me the confidence and strength. And she's a wonderful person. But when she said that, I never really thought about it as that, because I just try to block it out because it was so dramatic. But when I started to dig deep into it, I was like, wow, this is very interesting. And then people started contacting me, sending me Drake's lyrics. I was like,
And it was
this,
in the lyrics, actually, what happened to you, right?
yeah, the lyrics were exactly,
What took place.
what had took place.
You don't think that's a weird coincidence right there? That's
I do,
pretty,
I
yeah.
do.
That's
But at the time, like I said, at the time, I didn't, because there was three people that were arrested. So, and they pled guilty, and none of those were Drake, and none of those would have had any relation. But there was a fourth person that was never arrested, and the case would get very weird for like a few years. So I knew that there was some kind of force, and I would always, tell a friend of mine. Her name is Donna. Shout out to her. She would like help me through like a lot of crisis, and she's a Christian. But I would always talk to her. I'd be like, I feel like I'm up against the devil himself with this case. Yes, we've got partial justice, but not complete. And I could never point my finger on what that was. People at home started to think I was crazy. Law enforcement, the prosecutor, all those people started to think I was crazy because they're like, we have three people in prison. Why aren't you happy? 'Cause that something just didn't feel right with it. I knew that there was something out there and I could never figure out what it was. So once she said that and opened my mind, I was like, there could be something there, because I was battling strong force. I said it was like the devil himself because I kept losing, like this person who was my ex was dating one of the guys who went to prison. and she never got charged. And then she sued me in 2 states, and like I couldn't even heal like properly because she kept coming for me and coming for me and coming for me. And there's no way that her lawyer that someone could afforded she couldn't have afforded her lawyer for that long, a super lawyer, so I don't know if she was connected to Drake. I don't know what it was, but there's been a powerful entity that I'm up against that I haven't been able to beat.
Now, allegedly, from what I'm hearing, he was upset with you. For he said he felt like you was the one that gave Pusha T the information on his daughter.
Correct, which really wasn't fair because I was doing crisis management and mediating their relationship between Drake's baby mother, Sophie, and him. So I was mediating their relationship. And once the baby was born, which they thought was a girl at first, but became Adonis, his son, Drake was there. Drake manned up. Drake was the, father during the pregnancy. He didn't believe that it was his, and that's like common knowledge that's out there. He said that. But so it got real ugly. But then after that, I started to work with Drake individually, right? I was in constant contact with, his lawyer and Future the Prince and Drake, and they had paid me good. They had paid me something that I didn't even ask for, which was, to never reveal what happened with Sophie, and that was the Louisville hush money that's in the lyric. He talks about Louisville hush money is like I was in Louisville when I was paid hush money, right? So it's been that's been an eye-opening experience to think that he could have had involvement with it. That a lot of people think. A lot of people are constantly hitting me on my Instagram, saying Drake did it. Drake did it. Especially Kendrick fans. They love, they're like Drake set you up, bro. So I don't know.
So after the robbery incident with your daughter, you was currently at that time when that situation happened working with Drake, correct? So how did y'all interactions go after the robbery?
Fun. Like fun. I would ask him, right, an email, and I would email like his lawyer who's very much involved in his life and Future the Prince, like, are we good? Like, I haven't heard from anybody. Like, and yeah, yeah, everything is fine. Everything is fine. But I would hear this from like a journalist, like from Rolling Stone, that there was an issue with Drake and I, and from a different journalist. And I would always ask, Drake's team, like, why am I hearing this from that? No, that's not true. Drake doesn't think you had anything to do with, the Pusha T diss song, that nobody does. But I'm hearing that he did think that because I was like the only one because I represented his baby mother, Sophie, and we were all out in the press with it, right? Like, so he was mad at he was upset that I was working with her, and he did hold a grudge, allegedly. I'm not sure. Like I said, this has been something that's been very powerful. Whatever I've been dealing with, whatever I'm up against, is that. So I gotta still trying to figure out like right now in real time.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I figured out right away. How would the interactions just come
Yeah.
to a cease? That's a question mark. That immediately, you know, put a
Right.
question mark in. It's as close as you was. You said you was actually intervening between him and the child's mother. You was like really in if you was that close.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
you going through a devastational thing that you went through with your daughter, you would actually think his team would have reached out to you to embrace you after going through such a ordeal like you went through. So
Exactly. You would think, right?
yeah, so it's a question mark right there, you know.
Right. I agree. I agree. I agree. That's why I've been thinking about it and I've been speaking about it and talking about it, because hopefully, these these can cause a little fire. You know, you can flick a cigarette into the woods and it can, cause a huge, acres to be burnt down, right? Like just from a little spark. And hopefully, talking about this can cause a little spark where someone can see it, and then maybe law enforcement could look at it, and then maybe there could be justice. You know?
Hmm.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
So, what led you to the point to come out with your truth about the industry and all the shady, no good things that are being hidden to the people? What led you to coming out?
Well, so the thing that happened this year is I sobered up, right? Because I was doing like I was real involved in like ketamine, like every day last year. I was doing ketamine, like literally like every day.
Pardon me 1 second. Forgive my
Mhm.
naiveness. Can you tell me what ketamine is?
Ketamine is a horse tranquilizer, right? Which sounds crazy, right? When you say that,
Absolutely.
it comes in like a powder form, like cocaine. And so if someone were to put it in front of you, you wouldn't know if it was coke or ketamine. Called it Special K back in the day, right?
Mm.
But the thing that opened my eyes to ketamine was after the home invasion happened in 2017. I was going to see a counselor, and a counselor was like, "We're going to get you started on ketamine therapy, but we're about 8 months away from it being open in Louisville and for it to be approved." They were already having ketamine treatments in New York, right? For depression, trauma, psychological, but it's also that's given to you through a doctor, not through the streets. Just like, you can get fentanyl and opioids prescribed to you, given to you from a doctor, but you can also get them off the streets and be abusing them, right? So when I did ketamine for like the first time at the end of 2022, I did it the whole year because yeah, it does take away trauma. Yeah, it does take away depression, and it does, help you go through things, but because you're just out of it. You know what I mean? It's like you're not even like you're like a zombie. So that's what I was doing through 2023, and I wasn't really working. I wasn't really doing anything, but just, doing ketamine in New York and thinking that, oh, I'm healing. 'Cause that's the way the devil tricks you, right? I'm healing. This is what they prescribed to you, but there's no telling about if could have been fentanyl in that, could have been anything in that, like just buying ketamine off the streets and then selling it. That's crazy. Right? So, I've been sober this whole entire year, and my career has also been back on track. So there's obviously a reason for that, right?
The pink cocaine that I'm hearing about, is that ketamine?
No, that's called 2C.
Well, tell me about that because again, forgive my
I've,
naivety.
I've, I've never, I've never done any 2C. I just know that it's like a MDMA. It's like cocaine mixed with Molly or MDMA. That girls use it for like a sexual experience, and that's what people say about ketamine too. But I don't like. You're a male and on ketamine. When people say like, Puffy was doing a lot of ketamine, I don't really know how because horse tranquilizer, so you're tranquilized. Like it would seem like he would be giving other people ketamine, but maybe he would be doing like 2C or something else because ketamine, it's gonna can't really move that well. It's like totally like put you down. You understand what I'm saying? Like you're in a trance. So I don't see how you could be dominant or something. So if he was giving women ketamine, for his like freak offs or whatever, that's absolutely crazy.
So I heard that you said that when you wasn't on ketamine, when you was pretty much straight, that it was Puff that.
Correct. So that we had done, I worked with the Notorious Big Estate,
Hmm.
and I signed a deal with the Notorious Big Estate based on what Eric B. and Rakim, what we had done. We had success. So the next step was, oh, let's reimagine another album. So we decided to do Biggie. And when we did Biggie, it was done with my ex-girlfriend at the time. And she was into like ketamine and stuff like that. She was a dancer in New York, and she was into that lifestyle. Like, listen, like when the home invasion happened, I was so traumatized, and I was going through like a midlife crisis, and I got all these tattoos, and I just like I lost myself, right? I don't want to make excuse, because of the what I went through, the PTSD and that level of violence, but it did something to me. It changed me, and I was always trying to escape it. So people would do ketamine around me, but I would never do it. Like my whole life, it was always about, I'll just smoke pot. I'll never do anything, with sniffing or anything like that, right? And I never had sniffed any kind of drugs at all until the end of 2022, right? 2022. So that's the first time I've done any kind of sniff drugs. But yeah, so when I was working with when I was working with the Biggie Estate, we had put out the song and we went viral with like Rolling Stone and Spin Magazine, and we were collaborating. And right during the pandemic, after it came out, Puffy did a FaceTime with him, King Combs, his son, CJ Wallace, Biggie's son, Willie Mack, his partner, and then one of their assistants. And Puffy was like, "Yo, you go to Burning Man?" And I was like, "I've never been to Burning Man." I said, "I've only been to one rave, and that was a Carl Cox rave in Los Angeles." He was like, "You never been to Ibiza?" And at that time, I hadn't been to Ibiza or Burning Man. I knew about it. I was starting to learn about him. This was house music. He was like, "Do you do ketamine?" I was like, "I don't do ketamine." I said, "But the doctors try to prescribe it." He's like, "You can tell you don't do ketamine. That's why these tracks sound like that. That's why da 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 that they're not hitting like that. If you're in Burning Man or Tulum or Ibiza, everybody at the raves, they're all doing ketamine. You got to be doing ketamine. So that he was just going on this whole rant about ketamine was going to change our music, and then he sniffed ketamine on the thing, and I was shocked. I was like,
You watched him sniff it yourself.
well, I don't know if it was ketamine. I don't know if it was coke. It was definitely white. It was
You watched
definitely,
him snort a substance.
yeah. It could have been coke. But he was talking about ketamine, saying how we need to get involved with ketamine, and saying how because we were trying to get all those people into our music, and the fan base is ketamine, and he was exactly right. He like spoke that into existence because there I was in 2023, like I said, the whole year, every day doing ketamine. Like 2 years later, I didn't even know anybody that had done drugs like that. I didn't, right? I didn't, and then all of a sudden, that energy was like spoken into my life where everybody I knew was doing it. Like in New York, it was more popular than cocaine around the circles that I was around.
And I've never heard of it.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. It's a
That's
very, it's a very, it's a very underground, very, very party, very
party
house
drug.
music,
Yeah, yeah.
very techno. But I don't know how. When people call it a party drug, I'm always think like how because it's a horse tranquilizer. Seems like something after the party when you would take it to maybe come down and fall asleep. I don't know.
So how did you meet Puffy?
Through Biggie, through the Biggie estate.
But through the Biggie estate, he came.
Yeah, because Biggie was his artist. And so, and there is no Puffy without Biggie, right? I mean, all of Biggie's big songs have Puffy in it. We know Puffy's vocals and from all Biggie's music, and then Biggie dies, and Puffy does his biggest song about the death of Big. with Faith Evans, and that's working with the Biggie estate is how I got to meet, because Biggie's son is so close to Diddy's son, Christian.
Mm, interesting. And I heard you say something on that was, I mean, that was, I mean, it is what it is. It concerning, you made accusations to maybe that even Big was maybe bisexual, and that I know that you said for sure that his son is, you know.
Yeah, his son is definitely.
I had never heard that information,
Mhm.
that's that is.
I mean, his son is like, and he's come out there as very LGBT friendly, but then he pretends to be straight, but he's definitely
Now,
sexual.
now what? Now, what leads you to believe that Biggie might have been that way?
Just because people have said it so much about some of his lyrics that he has, that he says some openly gay things, but a lot of people say it's sarcasm. A lot of people say that, that's just Biggie's sense of humor. But he was saying some stuff, and we're talking about, as growing up, hip hop, a real hip hop head like yourself, in 96 and 97, like it wasn't cool to be that like it is now, especially in hip hop. Nowadays people, that was like very, very, very frowned upon, like you listen to early Eminem, and Eminem is doing songs about how he is homophobic, right? And how he says hate fags, the answer is yes, like, and nowadays it's, hip hop is different, and people have to be more, politically correct, or they get canceled. So, but Biggie did have some lyrics that are suspect. And then his DJ, was Mr. C, and then he was the one that was with the transgender. So it's been all around him. But Biggie's son behind the scenes is openly, is he's been in a gay relationship. When I met him, he was in a very serious gay relationship.
That's that's yeah, interesting. Now, what I do remember those lyrics as when I was coming up, and
Yeah.
I to at least want to say that when I first heard, the one with "You look so good," suck on, and I don't
Yeah.
repeat that. I remember when I heard that, I didn't understand it. You know what I'm saying? I didn't understand it.
It didn't hit me as gay, to be honest,
Yeah,
even though it's openly.
I just didn't understand it. I knew that. What did you just say right there?
Right.
Well, I don't know what you said that for. I don't understand. There must be some. I thought maybe it was just a lyric over my head, some type of way, but I still couldn't put together like, because me being a writer myself, I just was like, no, I just couldn't that. And then I did. And then in the future, because I didn't know then, in the future now they say, he got it from Richard Pryor,
Right.
but that don't make it no better though. I'm
Right.
not repeating something that, now that we all know that Richard Pryor was
Mhm.
have been, a bisexual man. I'm not repeating anything that, is that's not a
Right.
part of my lifestyle, period. I just,
Right.
it just, but what was more interesting than that is that I don't understand to this day. This stuff burdens me, like it hurts me. You know what I'm saying? Because some of these people, are like heroes to us, you know. And like you said, you know, you listen to their music, you listen to them, and you have an image of people in your head, you know. And sometimes you find out that you know, it's just questionable stuff that you know that you wouldn't, you know, don't know. And the transgenders in the videos, I you know, I didn't know that back then, but now that have been exposed to be clearly the truth. You know, they saying that it was a transgender, not once, not twice, but in 3 different videos. And
Right.
that in the warning video, the female in the bed is even that he's laying with is even the transgender. Is that true?
Yeah, I don't know. And do you remember his DJ when he got in trouble for being with the
Oh
transgender?
yeah, Mr. C. I know all about what happened.
Yeah, like that was his guy.
Yeah.
Puff was his guy. I mean, it's safe to say that like this is no cap and this is not trying to be funny, but it's safe to say that Biggie was part of the early what we now know as Diddy parties, like when they started, because you know, like it it was Diddy was Puffy. I mean, Biggie involved in any freak offs? Who knows? There's no telling how long that he was doing it, but they were best friends, right? Like, you know, Biggie says it in the song Hypnotize, close like Starsky and Hutch. Me and Puff, close like Starsky and Hutch. He was always in his videos. He was with him when he died, the car ahead of him, right? They were together like, you know, minutes before he died. You know, when they called the fire marshals to shut down the venue. He was sitting in a chair, you know, not gold like you got, but in a red chair. Puffy's right next to him. They were close like Starsky and Hutch, like he says. So Biggie obviously went to Puffy's parties. He would have been and in those Diddy parties, the very first ones. Because Puffy, as you know, Bad Boy blew up from Craig Mack a little bit, but blew up through the roof with the Notorious Big, with Ready to Die in Life After Death. Right? That's what put Puffy on.
Bang every MC
But
easily. That shit hit different.
so sorry, my partner said bang every MC easily sounds different now.
Yeah, bro. The whole thing does.
No Diddy.
No Diddy, pause. You
So,
know?
oh boy, this is a lot. All right, so of course, one would ask, how would you refer to Puff as maybe bisexual? Is there any evidence that you have to that? Did you see that with your own personal eyes that he's gay? Is that just not a rumor, you know? Because who's seen Puffy actually with a man, you know, besides maybe those that have been in the room?
Yeah, I mean, you know, with the criminal indictment that we've read, you know, that he would pleasure himself watching men, his wife, Cassie, and then his lawyer even confirming that, you know, like, well, it was all consensual. 'Cause,
Hmm.
you know, if you're gonna watch another man with your wife, you know, that's
But you personally have never seen anything that would
no.
make you know that, like you said, like with Biggie's son, you personally
Yeah.
saying that you saw that with your eyes, but
Yeah.
you've never
Like
seen.
I never saw them, you know, doing anything, but it's just like they were a couple. They were openly like couple-ish, you know, like that was their thing, and they were insanely jealous over each other. It was annoying.
But you never seen anything like that with Sean Combs.
No, I wasn't around. I wasn't around him when he
You
was.
wasn't around him.
No.
Okay, you know, interesting because he's Oh boy, they going from, now the children, they saying children is in the mix, and it's like, when does it go? What, like, you have to at some point say gossip, slander, or justice. Like, it's like, which three is it? Right now it seems like, you know, it's a lot of accusations. It's, that say a 9-year-old, like, I wouldn't want to think that Puffy would have anything to do with a child. That one right there seems to be a little far-fetched, you know. But with that being said, I heard you speak on that he's a part of well, no, actually you didn't know if he was. You said he was a different animal in himself, but a lot of the guys being a part of the Freemasons in
Hmm.
the industry, that's true. You've witnessed that.
I don't really know. I know about, like, for a fact, I know about all the symbolism,
Hmm.
but I don't know. I've never seen like a Freemasons type ceremony or anything like that.
Have you seen
Other
any?
people have,
Have you seen any ceremony?
no. Mm-mm.
All right, because that's one of the things that's constantly been heavily rumored throughout hip hop, that this is like some big secret society that these guys have going on, and everything like that. But besides dealing with the Biggie Smalls estate and going through the turmoil with it, were there any artists that you actually have dealt with? Because the claims, you named a lot of people, and I'm like, one of the things my wife was, the queen even said is, how would you know these things? It's
And some Wu fans have hit me, and like people who knew that I was connected to Rings and Partners, like, why would you say that, to RZA, and why would you say that about RZA, and why would you say that about Sway? And it's like, yo, why would you put me in that spot? Like,
that's what I keep thinking. Why would they let you be there? Like, why would they let you be there? Why would they let you even hear something like that? Did they not know that you could hear? I mean, like,
of course they did, because Tech kept trying to, the word I was looking for is he kept trying to drown out the sound. He kept trying to drown out the sound upstairs with the speakers, because we had a studio up there and we were working on Crook's album called Sex, Money, and Hip Hop.
it's very spooky.
Very spooky. But I want to make that clear, about Crook. I know that he was just as surprised as me, but I was trying to, like, like, look at him, signal to him, because King Tech, but like, how do you want to go? You don't want to go against Sway and King Tech, especially those are people who put him on. Those are people who helped him get the deal with Eminem. Like, how can you go against those people? I did, and it backfired. That's kind of why I ended up being depressed and kind of shunned from the industry for a few years. But now I'm back and I don't care, And if Crooked Eye denies it, well, he's not being authentic, and he's one of the most authentic MCs I know. So he should come out and speak about this too.
Some people don't want to destroy their career.
I know, but listen, I love Crooked. I know we're at odds right now, but I love King Crooked and everything we've done together. And
Because you got to realize, not even if what you're saying is true, just what you're saying, it, yeah, it's It could, it's career destroying, and if these guys, if the people that you have named, which is the top of that, like top of the hill, these are the very people that could block your whole career. These are the people that could get.
They could, but they can't now.
Yeah, they can't. You can never block God, but yeah, these are the people that could pretty much.
But yeah, but you're right. But then, of course, because when I left that company, when I left that production, I jammed them up a little bit, and they never talked to me again. And my life as a PR person got really, really hard.
Yeah.
I didn't have the same contacts that I did.
Look, you see, you know. Now, I heard you speaking about Jay-Z a lot, but I didn't quite understand where he came into play with everything. Can you explain that to me a little bit? Because what you were saying was him.
Listen, this is so crazy about Jay is if you ask me who this is all new, with God, and I'm just being like 100% real with you. Right? Like I'm getting back and I'm getting back into God. So it's like there's definitely a conflict there because I would say that Jay-Z, without question, is the greatest rapper of all time.
Over Rakim?
What?
Over Rakim?
Over Rakim.
I don't know about that. Go ahead.
Over Biggie, over Eminem, over Tupac.
You think Jay is over all of those people?
Just because it's body of work. If you look at Reasonable Doubt all the way up to The Blueprint, all the way up to 444, and you look at Eric B. and Rakim's work, which is like 3 albums, Jay-Z has like 10 classics. But even then, the whole time I'd always be confused because we would see his symbolism. We would see, Hova. Like we would call this man Hova and Jehovah. And him always holding up the diamond pyramid sign. And then he would have songs like Lucifer. And he was doing a lot of anti-Christ things constantly. And if you're a Jay-Z fan, like all this, right? Like the struggle that we've had with Jay-Z and with some of his things that he does and acts like. But but anyways, but no, like now would I put Jay-Z over, Rakim and all that for like his content? No, but like I was really like a Jay-Z fan. But I started working with Jay-Z through a mill. And when I was working with him, he was totally cool. He would always contact me back on his two-way pager. He had the T-Mobile, the T-Mo.sidekick, whatever. He would always contact me there. He was always kind. He would always ask about a mill. He asked me to help him do a project called Lady Sovereign, which was this British grime rapper. And then when I started working with the producer of Rihanna's Pon de Replay, he just became the head of Def Jam. I thought for sure that he would help us with that, and he didn't. And the relationship with him, got very, very weird after the Rihanna project. When I was like, and I was in his wife's Becoming Beyonce autobiography that was released in 2015, and they asked me to fall on the sword and take blame for a lot of this stuff. And they were going to look out for me for Tidal, and Tidal's the future, and Tidal's over Spotify, and Tidal's over Apple Music, and Tidal's going to take over the world. And I'm on the ground floor. And, that obviously never happened with Tidal. And they never even did anything that they said they were going to do for me to fall on the sword. Right?
All right, so let me clearly understand what you're just saying so the people understand. So it was a situation with you and Jay-Z. that broke y'all apart and that situation? Because I saw you on the news and you was apologizing for starting
Right.
the rumor of him and Rihanna, correct?
That was in the Becoming Beyonce book. Like that clip that you're talking about in Inside Edition. You know how they cut clips and they edit stuff, and sometimes they take it out of context. But I was really there to talk about the Becoming Beyonce book.
And that was in the book?
Yeah, the rumor was.
The rumor was in the book.
That's what exposed it.
You wrote the book?
No,
So why would they blame you for the rumor?
so the author, he wrote a book. He had wrote like Michael Jackson's book and Princess Diana's book, and he had wrote that was like his thing. And so when he wrote the Becoming Beyonce book, there's a chapter about Rihanna and about the publicity stunt that I did. That in the book it said that I had broke up Jay-Z and Beyonce's relationship, for a while, broke up their marriage because of the rumor. And that's when I was like, oh, because I was already working with Rock Nation on Tidal at the time. So that's when I hit them. I was like, man, this is whack, and they knew I was pissed because that I would have said something or put it out on social media, but they were like, no, just go with it, just apologize, we're gonna set something up for you for Inside Edition. We're gonna help you get your word out there, stick with this script. We really appreciate it. What's your account number? Because we want to send you some money because you've been doing such a great job. It's like, okay, sure. That type.
Was you the person that placed the rumor out there?
So the way that the rumor came out, it wasn't me, it was a group of people along with the original producer were thinking about things, to break Rihanna's career, to get her going, because everybody at the time already thought that they were in a relationship because of the way that they were acting, the way that they had seen him together, the way that they were at parties and, da 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 da. So they were like, we're gonna start like a, a almost like a competition between Beyonce and Rihanna for Jay-Z, like a love triangle. It was that type of thing. So I'm the one that sent it over to the National Enquirer, and that's when it started to go crazy. That's when she went from like an unknown artist to like all the way up number 2, the charts and everything else. And that got crazy. But it wasn't just like me, like by myself, a weirdo thinking about a rumor to put out. It was with everybody.
Did the rumor have any truth or was it just false?
I, yeah, everybody believed that the rumor was true, that the way that they acted together. Everybody believed it. I mean, I didn't know.
They seemed a little extra close when you would see them together.
Yeah, because listen, something like that has stuck for 20 years. Like literally, it happened in 2005. The rumor came out, and then it's in a best-selling book, and then it comes up in documentaries that was on academics earlier this year, and then it always comes up. Like, how could something without any kind of truth behind it just be some kind of rumor? How could it stick for that long? And why would it stick for that long? Why hasn't Rihanna or Jay-Z came out and said that is not true? Like, yo, I wish they would. So I wish they would come out and say, yeah, wasn't just him. Like listen, I've begged them, like Jay-Z's lawyers and Rock Nation, like this is making me look bad. Like when the home invasion happened, man, that's the first thing that the St. Matthews police did. It's like they're like, did you set this home invasion up? Because we know that you have a history of setting things up like you did with.
Telling lies, yeah.
I was just like, all right.
That and that's the burden of where we at now because you still have to live by that stigma because people going to say, you know, if you made that up and then you went on the news and apologized, who's to say that, you know, everything that you're saying is not made up? And that
Well, that's because I have no entity behind me, and I have nobody, you know, and the stuff that I'm saying isn't real. I don't see how it could be positive, you know, for somebody's career. What I'm helping to do is with like Jaguar, right, is to, you know, help tear down this industry, to help restore it, to help get it back to like Eric B and Rakim.
you,
People can listen to Eric B and Rakim and Public Enemy, and they could, you know, Eric B and Rakim on his 3 albums that they released, he never cussed, bro. He never cussed at all. Chuck D, X Clan, they were saying the most positive things. And they were about like, you know, changing lives and all this stuff. Somewhere along the line with Puffy, with Jay-Z, it's just gotten so wicked, you know? And I would love to see it go back. And there's a paradigm shift. When Diddy is in prison right now as we speak, when Jay-Z's being accused for a lot of things, people weren't able to say this about Jay. So it's like his armor's down. Like there's a force building up with him against him, right? And that's never been able to happen before. You know, the truth weapons are starting to penetrate. You understand what I'm saying? Like,
I understand exactly what you're saying.
so I think that it's just what, like we're looking at a great reset with the music industry, because Puffy was like so powerful because Biggie was, you know, when did Ready to Die come out?
Ready to Die 93.
93. That, I mean, you know, that's when hip hop, he's one of the people that took it mainstream. You know, before, you know, hip hop was only on like an hour on MTV Raps and stuff. You know, and what's the thing that was shown in New York?
Video Music Box.
Video Music Box. Yeah. Like you know, and then with Puffy it started to go mainstream with Biggie, and that's been part of the infrastructure. And who was Biggie best friends with? Jay-Z, two Brooklyn guys. You know, they were all together. So you've had this wicked society of hip hop that's kind of dominated. Besides what you have on the West Coast with like Dr. Dre, you know, Easy, Snoop Dogg, and everything that's been birthed from Dre, which is, you know, Eminem and all that.
You had any dealings with Dre?
I worked with Aftermath Music when it was a website that they were trying to compete with like the blogging back in the day. And I did meet him before. One of my clients was an artist that's still signed to him, a producer by the name of Focus.
Mm-hmm.
Bernard Edwards. His father was in Bernard Edwards Sr. It was in Chick, you know, but Focus is signed to Dr. Dre to this day. And that's how I met Dre, from working with Focus. And since I was working with Crooked Eye, you know, he would take me to Detroit and work with like Slaughterhouse and those type of things, you know. I got to work with Eminem and Paul Rosenberg and stuff like that. And Shade 45.
That's cool. How was it with Dr. Dre? You know, it's a lot of rumors surrounding around him for a long time. I mean,
I don't know. I've never experienced. I've never been around them enough to just know that I was like starstruck. I was blown away. Right, Stray. Never, never been in any kind of situations with Dr. Dre. That was weird.
yeah, you know, there's been a lot of weird accusations that we've heard. You know, like all the people have heard many years about him, and it makes you wonder. Like again, all of that stuff. Do put a question mark. Do you see? So you obviously do seek, because you obviously said that that's the plan. So this is going to destroy hip hop in Hollywood as we know it. You understand that, right?
Yeah, but good because hip hop needs to come back to what it was. Hip hop was about hope and building up communities and not tearing them down with this garbage and stuff. Hip hop was yeah aggressive, and like my parents, besides like Ghetto Boys, obviously that was explicit, but like Public Enemy and Eric B. and Rakim, I can understand when they would hear that from like a kid that it sounded like very rebellious and maybe it sounded very dark, but it wasn't, right?
No way.
It was all pop, it was all uplifting.
Yeah,
You know, it was all positive, you know. But I remember this one time I was in Louisville and we went to go see Public Enemy and I was like 14 years old. And it was Public Enemy, it was Heavy D and the Boys, it was Digital Underground when Tupac was dancing, Chill Rob G, Queen Latifah, um, and it was like the best show. But I remember when Public Enemy came on, they were the headliners. They shut down all the lights, and we were like the only, you know, white kids there, right? They shut out all the lights, and then they brought out the S1Ws, you know, and Professor Griff, and they started, you know, talking to Malcolm X stuff. I remember we were like, oh my gosh, we were so terrified that we went up and sat in the chairs. But we didn't need to. Everybody was came up to us like, "Oh, you're cool. It's so cool that you guys were here." It was nothing but love. But it was like scary when you would see the S1Ws come out and march, and you're just a kid. You know what I mean? And it's just like talking all the like you know all the stuff Malcolm X and like Malcolm X. A lot of people have said that like, oh, like you know, you're a white guy. You're just exposing you know people of color. It's like you know, my hero is Malcolm X, right? Like I grew up, you know, reading the autobiography of Malcolm X. And like he's like my favorite human because of what he went through and he saw what Elijah Muhammad was doing. You know, a person who saved him, turned him from Detroit Red to Malcolm X and he spoke out against Elijah Muhammad because he saw that he was not acting right. And he went to Mecca and he prayed with the white man and he came out and he said, you know, white people aren't, not all white people aren't the, you know, the devil and stuff like that. So I've studied Malcolm X and like I used to go to Washington Heights all the time where he was murdered at the Audubon showroom. And I would, because it was right next to the New York Presbyterian Hospital. So I would just go out there and just like take it all in. Like, this isn't like a white person trying to tear down uh, you know, the culture. This is a like Vlad, like I think Vlad TV, you know, tends to do that. This is a person that's just trying to help hip hop and what it really is from like KRS-One and Big Daddy Kane and you know all the stuff that we grew up on. You know, I
I
love hip hop.
I agree,
I
and
don't, but I don't like all this wicked and I don't like all this foul stuff.
I agree.
You know.
But most naysayers and people that are watching this and that's going to watch this, which will probably be viral, um, they're going to see it like that. You're going to have people saying that, you know, why are you just mentioning these guys? You know, what about the Jimmy Iovine's? You know, what about the Clyde Davises? What about the countless more, you know, people that you have behind the scenes that are actually empowering these guys to be in the positions they're in to, you know.
Well, it's really just two. And that's from like the East Coast side, which is Diddy and Jay. And then what comes from them is, you know, crazy because you remember when even when I like met Rakim, you know, Rakim was like so pure and like he was like meeting like a John Coltrane or a Miles Davis, right? Like just so like humble and pure and you think about you remember when Jay-Z came out, like Jay-Z was like, you know, God MC, me, Jehovah. Like he was like pushing out like Rakim. Like they pushed out that type of music with their, sex, money, and type of rap, you know? The gangster rap of Notorious B.I.G.
Yeah. So oh boy, watching so you said it's just Puff and Jay, meaning those are the two powerhouses. What did you mean?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And look, who
But
goes with Jay-Z?
who's behind them?
They're so powerful. I don't know. I don't know who goes past them. Like, and whoever it is, I've never met them.
You never met Jimmy IV?
I met Jimmy Iovine once because of that rock group that I told you about. We were signed to Outpost, and then we got bought out by Interscope, and I had just met him for like a brief second.
Aren't he under some heavy allegations right now as well?
I'm not for sure. I've never
Yeah,
I've
he
never
is.
experienced that. I just know what I've experienced with Puffy and Jay-Z.
And you said experience with Jay-Z. I did hear you say, which is unfortunate too, but you alluded to that Jay-Z is bisexual.
Hmm.
Is this something that you are again, would this be something that you have seen with your own eyes or something that you have just added up because of, maybe different scenarios you might have seen?
It would be a different type of, yes, seen it with my own eyes, but not been in the same room or upstairs like I was with. But yeah, Jay-Z, that was kind of a common thing that people have known back in the day, that he swung both ways. And his mother was gay, and he hid that for a long
So
time.
other people notice about Jay. People notice about him.
Right. So it's kind of those things that you always just heard. But this is going back, it, you know, this is going back 20 years. This is going back before the internet. This is going back before Reddit, right? And I was hearing that stuff.
But that was before your time of being with him, though, correct?
Um, no, Jay-Z would have been a mill 2003, 2004.
Oh, you.
Rihanna 2002, Rihanna 2005.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Tidal, Rock Nation 2015.
So again, so yeah,
Yeah.
you was present during that time.
Mhm.
So you've witnessed things that directly make you insinuate that he's that
For
way.
sure. Yeah.
That's very, very something else. You know.
And there's no other rapper that I've been around, from all the hip hop and rap stuff that I've been that I've heard these things about, you know.
Again,
You never heard these you never heard these things about Tupac, I worked with Death Row Records back with Suge Knight after Tupac was dead, and with like Suge Knight's artists that he couldn't get off the ground. Like, you never heard any of that stuff with them. You never heard any about that kind of stuff with Slaughterhouse. You never heard about any of that stuff with King Crooked or Saha the Prince, or I worked with all the Wu-Tang members, Inspector Deck. Never heard that about any of them. Raekwon, it was just, RZA, right? Which was the most shocking one because I was such a fan. I was such a Wu-Tang fan that I can't even listen to Wu-Tang Clan anymore. I loved Wu. I was a Wu head.
What do you think about the rappers wearing dresses? We've had a few rappers seem like they're wearing dresses. What do you have you had any dealings with those guys?
I haven't. But what I could say about them is like at least they're honest and not hiding it. Like these other rappers have. Like, we see like Russell Wilson doing that as well. And it just seems like it's part of the young culture. It's a different style of dressing. I've never worn a dress. Like my friends, my friends don't. My friends never worn a dress, so never seen Sway Calloway or RZA in a dress either.
When
So it might be for shock value for these kids to wear, dresses and stuff. I think fashion
you got
nowadays.
some of the older guys doing it too now.
Man, well, at least we know it's not Rakim.
Yeah, I've seen some of the big older rappers that, just recently, being
At
seen.
least it's not LL or Cool G Rap.
No, 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 no. It's not them, but I don't know. It's just I think this is important to be said. You know, the world needs to understand this, and I know you understand it. If you're not being controlled by God, you're controlled by the devil. There is no in between to that. And I don't think people understand that. You will serve, you cannot serve two masters. You will serve one or the other.
Hmm.
With that said, we have all fallen short of the glory of God, and we all need to work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. Sin, we enter in these lives and we get poisoned with sin. And we become a victim of it. And these guys, I don't know what happened to them personally in their lives that might have got them, in the wrong way, but it is important that the children know.